opening reception, but we're a library, so you know we're going to say something. We're going to have a short presentation tonight. We want to welcome you to Wish You Were Here, a look back at life in Hudson through vintage postcards. And we are very excited about this exhibit. We're sure that you will be too as you look at it. It's our first ever curated in-house exhibition, and it's also the first exhibition that we've ever done of our History Room collection. So we're celebrating for that reason. We definitely could not have done it without David Murphy, who curated, along with Gary, the exhibition, did the framing, probably was the only person who knew what we were getting into when we decided to do it. So thank you so much, David. He's the former president of the Hudson Area Library Board of Trustees, and he's a member of the History Room Committee. And also Gary Sheffer, who will be giving a short presentation tonight on the subject. He's a member of our library board and the chair of the History Room Committee. And just being here in Hudson and doing the job I do, I can tell you that there's two different kinds of people who absolutely love Hudson history. People who were born here and people who have come to call Hudson their home. And I see both groups really loving history, and that is represented with David and Gary big time. And I want you to know, I don't want to embarrass them, but I do want to tell you this took hours and hours of labor to do the research, to do the framing, to choose the postcards, and also both gentlemen paid for all the materials that were required for this exhibition. So thank you very much. In addition to that, you're going to see these little cards here that have a lot of research on them, and it represents what our History Room volunteers can do. As most of you know, we have research request forms that you can fill out, and for free, the volunteers will do the research for you on local Hudson, Greenport, and Stockport, and outlying areas. And there are a lot of research requests that we get, and they are fulfilled for the most part. I definitely want to thank our lead head researcher, John Craig, who is absolutely amazing. He's training our new volunteer team now, and the knowledge that he has, plus his editorial skills, he's a big fan of the Oxford comma, I will say that. And right now, we also have research volunteers who contributed, in addition to John Craig, Jim Hoon, Gary and Barb Sheffer, Sue Bellinger, and we have a wonderful AmeriCorps worker, Krista Shook, who is in the process of scanning every one of our postcards. This exhibition came to be because we were approached by a collector who actually really loves the library and said, I have a lot of Hudson postcards I bet you don't have. I'll look through your collection and I'll see what you don't have, and I'll sell you whatever that you don't have already at a very good price. And he did just that. And we have pretty much a complete collection of historic Hudson postcards, although we will take donations of them because we probably are missing some. So because we have that complete collection, we want to get it archived, we want to get it digitized. That's what Krista is doing. We had, by the way, a private donor paid for this collection to sell, for us to buy the postcards from the collector, which was very generous. The same private donor also paid for us to be members of Southeastern New York Library Resources Council, and they trained us in how to professionally scan the photographs so they're at archival quality, and we're going to be putting them on the New York Heritage Digital Collection. So we're right in the middle. We also got a grant from Kinderhook Bank to do this archiving, and Gary will tell you about how many postcards we have, but we're right in the middle. We've hired a wonderful archivist to finish up the work once Krista has digitized everything of archiving and then entering them into the New York Heritage Digital Collection. And we ran out of money, so we are hoping that you will donate, that you will buy these beautiful t-shirts that we have in the hallway with the image that's up here. And we also have note cards for sale. So, certainly think about it. We have a wonderful wine and cheese reception afterwards, and if you are able to, we would appreciate any donations that you can. I just want to tell you what's happening in the next 3 days, quickly, and then we'll turn the time over to Gary. Tomorrow night, Dee Barrett will be here with an author, Mary Beth Pfeiffer, who wrote Lyme, the first epidemic of climate change. There's going to be a lot of information on Lyme and tick-related diseases. That's tomorrow night at 5:30, and very, very useful. So you can have your questions answered, maybe learn some new information. And then Saturday, watercolor with your grandperson. So you can bring your grandparent, you can bring your grandson, you can bring your son. We're not going to fuss with your relation, but we're hoping that grandparents and their grandchildren will come to this. Grandparents' Day is Sunday, so this is to celebrate that. It's in collaboration with the Senior Center, and it's Saturday from 12 to 3. And then there's 2 sessions, so if you want, just let us know which one you'd like to register for. And then Sunday, the wonderful Pamela Badilla will be doing folk tales and stories for families at 2 o'clock at the library, returning from her very successful engagement at Hudson Hall with Spirit of the River. So we hope that you will be interested in those programs. And I'll turn the time over to Gary.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Gary Sheffer, and I chair the History Room Committee. I'm also a member of the Hudson Library Board, and I grew up in Hudson and moved away for a while, and now I'm back. And I really love this project for a lot of reasons. I like stories. And I really am drawn more to, other than the great artwork that you see on the front of the postcards, the stories behind them on the back of the cards is really what attracted me and to this project. And this is the one that we've used for our t-shirts and our promotion. You can see the date on this. Tomorrow night, this will be 111 years since this fella sent this postcard. I'm not sure who it was sent to. There's not any information on the back of the card. But a street scene from my native town, right? So that's how people felt about Hudson then. That's how I feel about it. And I'm going to be, tell some stories here. As Brenda said, there was a lot of serious work that went into this exhibit. If you walk around and look at the research that went into each of these postcard categories, it was extensive, let me tell you, and Brenda thanked everyone who was involved. John and Craig was key to all of this, but there's other folks here that you see. So you probably didn't think you were coming to a talk tonight on deltiology, but that is the hobby, that is the collection, study, and preservation of picture postcards. And that website underneath deltiology is actually from the American Institute of Deltiology, which is located in Pennsylvania. They have a museum. They have more than 1 million postcards there. And deltiology is a made-up word. There was a professor at the University of Maryland who was a postcard fanatic, and he made up the word deltiology. And now it's become quite popular. Just some academic stuff and then the fun stuff. The real sort of golden era of picture postcards was the period that you see around the room here, really 1900 to 1910. An act of Congress authorized in 1898 that postcards could be printed privately. Until then, it was the U.S. Postal Service was the only one authorized to issue postcards. And it standardized the size, that a message, where the message went, where the address went. And postcards were necessary because people were looking for an easy way to talk to their friends, to invite people over to dinner, to order things. You'll see here in a minute. David Murphy, my partner on this, David told me a fact the other day that I looked at this time about 1900 to 1910. Well, weren't there phones? And there were indeed 3 million phones in the United States in about this period. But the average income of a person was about $400 a month at the time, David, right? And the cost of a phone was exorbitant. People could not afford phones. So this, in many cases, was their phone, right? This is the way they communicated with each other through postcards. And another person who studied postcards said the most important things that people showed, particularly in the Hudson Valley, was the landscapes and how they changed over the years. That's the most important thing about postcards. Now, we don't have a lot of that. You'll see a lot of our postcards are from the same period. But the fact that postcards are an important historical item because they show how places changed over the years. We can see that mainly in our collection through the street scenes. The street scenes collection is over here, and we blew up some of them out in the hallway as well. And you can see, for example, I chose to blow up that postcard at Warren Street. There was a theater, the Rialto Theater, right about where it looks like the barbecue American Glory was. And I hadn't known that before, that there was a theater there at one point. So that's the importance, communicating with people and historic sort of contrast on what happened with places like Warren Street. So I said there was a lot of serious things that went into this exhibit, which was the research, and it's really good. Collecting postcards is also a big item even today. And you can see from this 1910 postcard, this was a Hudson collector, someone named G. Gifford, sending a postcard to someone in Lyons, New York, saying, if you really want to get a good collection of postcards, you got to join a club, right? And that this person has more than 2,200 postcards herself. The History Room collection, as Brenda, we've got about 400 postcards. We picked the best here to put on exhibit. They're being digitized, most from 1900 to 1910. Most focus on Hudson, but some show other Columbia County sites as well, and Stuyvesant Falls and that kind of thing. What you see here is all Hudson. Some are a mystery. We don't know what they depict. You know, they're postcards. We don't know what's left, so we'll digitize those and put them online, and we'll need your help. As Brenda said, we'd love to complete our collection. We know we don't have a fully complete collection of Hudson postcards, and so if you have any that you'd like to donate, or you know where we can source them, please let us know. And these will be online next year. We broke this down, this exhibit, into street scenes. This is the Hudson Athens Lighthouse here. This is the New York Trading School for Girls, which I never knew existed. And I love the postcard that we show here of the girls doing a fire drill. But you'll see going around the room, the reason I point this out, the Hudson Armory, boats on the Hudson River, the county courthouses, Hudson schools, the churches. These were the things that people in the community considered to be their landmarks, the most important institutions in the city. And so therefore they made them into postcards. You see this didn't change over the years. We've still got Fireman's Home. We've had some postcards from the 1960s at the Fireman's Home, which I'll show you. But this collection really is a statement about what people consider to be important in Hudson. So this is where I'm going to tell some stories. The back of the cards are great. You know, many of them don't have anything on them, but a lot of them do. And really what it comes down to is postcards 100 or so years ago really were the Twitter and Facebook of their time. And this is what I mean by that. So this is a postcard from 1915 of a landslide at the Knickerbocker cement plant, which became the Lone Star out on the edge of Hudson, right on the border of Hudson and Greenport. And you can see the person who sent it wrote on top of it, some slide. So the landslide happened in a building at Knickerbocker Cement, collapsed. This is the back of the card, right? And so he sent this to someone in Stone Ridge, New York, and he said, a little sister arrived today, September 6th at 2:15 p.m. Mama and sister is doing fine, Charles. So of course, what do you do when you have a birth in the family? You send them a postcard of a collapsed cement plant. You know? And by the way, notice the 1 cent stamp there for the time. Similarly, this is what I love. This is the old toll house, Westgate toll gate, and that's back in that corner over there. This is a kind of a crazy postcard, but we've got several of them. It looks like it's about 1907. And this was to send news, just like you do on your Twitter, your Facebook post, right? And still alive. So he's sending news to someone that someone named Ann is still alive. And of course, how do you do that? Send them a picture of the toll gate, right? Ann is still alive. This one, I like, again, it's about news. You can see that this person received this postcard in Hudson in 1906, Miss Isabel Ely on Allen Street. And then on March 11th or March 24th, 1911, she wrote about the 4th Street School, which is on the flip side of this card, that fire had damaged several of the rooms in the building and that the water damaged it as well. So she held on it for several years and used it to make a note to herself about news that was important to her. This is an interesting one I like. You can see, this is from 1961. I mentioned the Fireman's Home. We have some from later in the period. And I really like the cancellation on this. 1961, the cancellation by the post office was "Pray for Peace," which is kind of interesting. But this is a resident at the Fireman's Home. His name is Floyd Youngums. You can see that down at the bottom. He sent it to a friend, Roy Wing, in Clinton Corners. And if you can read it here, he said, "I'm feeling very good and wondering how you are down there. I can use some cigarettes and candy as I do not have it," right? So he's writing to ask his friend to deliver some cigarettes and candy to him. And the reason I like this postcard is, on the front, it's very faint here, but in case his friend forgets who he is, he says Floyd, and he draws an arrow to himself in the front of the building for the postcard. So it's sort of like Twitter and Facebook posts. It's also like Instagram. Instagram is a photo sharing, website, social app. And this is one I showed when I talked about the general worth, the postcard. This is a woman traveling from Ossining to Syracuse. So, Instagram's about travel and that kind of thing. So were postcards, obviously. And she says to her friend, or she sends back home, "Had 3 blowouts and have only arrived here." Right? So I assume the blowouts doesn't mean parties. It means tires on the car were blown out. So people used it as Instagram as well, too, to say, here's where I'm traveling. And Hudson was often a stop, and the general worth was often a stop as people traveled around this part of the country. These cards could serve this purpose because they were delivered really fast. I mean, really fast. They were almost as fast as social media. So this is another one, Isabel Ely, and you can see there are 2 postmarks on the back of this postcard. And it was postmarked in Clobrook at 6 p.m. In 1907 on March 11th, and postcard the next day at 5 a.m. March 12th, 1907 in Hudson. So these cards got there really, really fast, and you could use them to do things like this. Now, this is a Hudson postcard on the flip side, but it's between 2 people in Fort Plain, New York. And so the request is, it looks like it says the Wise. The Wise will have a picnic Thursday afternoon, and Mother would like to have you be there, right? So I looked up July 26, 1909, and it was a Monday, right? And it's postmarked at about 6:30 p.m. So people felt like on a Monday evening, they could send a postcard to somebody else in Fort Plain, and it would get there in time for them to know about a picnic on Thursday, right? It was their phone. They couldn't afford phones, but it was their phone and social media that they used these postcards for. There's a few more slides here. Some of these became ridiculously cartoonish over the years. Most of them were really well done photos. You'll see them around. And by the way, I was going to say back here as we talked about, I hope you guys when we're talking about Twitter and Instagram and other social media apps, people also used it like Amazon, and I didn't realize it until I came in tonight and looked at the postcard on the far wall that we blew up of the Armory. And it's a woman sending a note to someone that she wants 3 pounds of smoked sausage and a chicken by Saturday. Right? I know I'm late. It doesn't say what date she was asking for. So it was like her Amazon, right? She was ordering food for dinner, 3 pounds of smoked sausage and ham on Saturday. But these became sort of cartoonish. I like this one because it's the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, I think from around 1910, or no, 1941. And you can see that they made the bridge look like the Tappan Zee Bridge. Like the bridge goes all the way into Hudson, right? And, you know, it obviously doesn't. And there's little toy cars down here. People became taking pictures and having artists reproduce postcards. It was much cheaper for them than send out a photographer to do it. So you see a lot of these over the years, and you see some of them in our collection of these sort of cartoonish postcards. The best one I like, and I blew it up in the back here near our train station one, is this one. It's like, this is the New York City, the train to New York from Hudson. And you can see here, it's just this really cartoonish. There are no tracks, right? It's just, looks like a child drew it. But you see a lot of those in the collection of postcards. And I really like this one. Some people understood the need for brevity. Some people did not. So there is a postcard that's blown up here. We took the backs of the cards and put them on the wall. And one woman said to her daughter as she was on a trip, I know you're on your trip. Have you got your diamond yet? Right? She was going to see her boyfriend. And that was it. She sent a postcard to her daughter who was traveling. And it was just a few beautiful lines. And I think we blew it up as one of the sites around here. Some people just did not get the need for brevity on these cards. This is from Betty to somebody in Gloucester, Mass. The flip side of the card, the front side of the card, is the training school for girls. And if you read it, and you blow this up and you read it, she is going there to study criminology, and she's really thrilled about it. But it's very difficult to read. So brevity was really important for an effective story on the back of a postcard. So we'd like your help. This is a postcard that we know we don't have. This is from one of the books about Hudson, John. I forget which one. But it's a sightseeing in Hudson's from 1907. And during this research that we did for this exhibit, we did see some postcards and some books and elsewhere that of the county courthouse and other places that we know we don't have. So if you know of any sources for the ones you don't see them in this room or when we digitize them, we'd certainly like to complete the collection. So that's the story of this collection. We kept it short. Brenda, that's short enough? Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Or it's meant to be a reception and an exhibit, so yeah, right here.
How are these postcards delivered?
How are they delivered? By the Postal Service, by the U.S. Postal Service. So they went through the post office, got stamped. Those were official stamps, even the one that said "Pray for Peace." Some people hand delivered them. You'll see in some of these there is no Postal Service stamp on it. And I can only imagine that they never, A, never sent it, or B, they hand delivered it themselves. Had some hand delivered.
Were all the postcards picture postcards, or did you go plain postcards just as a way to indicate?
Yeah, the ones that there were, and there still are plain postcards that really don't have anything on them. The collection that we tried to find was...
No, I'm just saying, right, that the picture would be something extra, because if you were just using it as a way to communicate.
Exactly. That's right.
For people that are collecting postcards, are the price of a postcard, is it worth more if it has a whole story to it, like somebody writing whatever the note is?
Yes. I think that's right. I think like any collectible, the condition of the postcard and how rare it is probably the most important part of it. And then if there's, particularly for some postcards, famous people have, sent them to their families and friends and that kind of thing. That increases the value. But the ones with stories on the back, usually you get a little more money for them then. But it's really about whether it's rare and what condition it's in.
I think it's interesting that some of the addresses are just, Master
Yes.
Jones in a town.
Yeah.
In the collection, is there like a timeline as to when the addresses begin to resemble or like current addresses?
Yeah, and like there's one card that we have, and I might have blown it up. It was delivered to a woman who lived on Warren Street, and the woman wrote on the bottom, Warren, Mrs. Smith, Warren Street. She lives above Public Square, and it got delivered, right? It got delivered. So I think you see in the 30s, more sophisticated addresses starting to appear on some of the backs of the postcards. But the ones that we have, you get rural fire districts, you get general locations of people, but not really specific addresses like apartment 1B or anything like that, and certainly not zip codes. Anything else? Thank you all for coming. Really glad to have you here, and I hope you enjoy the exhibit.